Lesson 10 is a key lesson because we'll learn the difference between markups and markdowns. These problems will involve converting percentages into decimals and fractions. Let's get started. Once again, we're going to learn the difference between markups and markdowns, which are also known as discounts. Here's an example of a markup. A $200 dress is marked up by 30%. So let's underline up and draw an up arrow so that we know that it's a markup. Stores do this when they raise the price of an item in order to make a profit and stay in business. Here's an example of a markdown. Here, a $200 dress is marked down by 30%. So let's underline the word down, draw a down arrow so that we know that it's a markdown. And stores do this when they put an item on sale in order to help it sell more easily. Let's work through the markup problem. Once again, a $200 dress is marked up by 30%. To help us visualize what's going on, we're going to use a bar model. We always start with a 100% bar, and this 100% represents the original cost of the dress. So since it started at $200, I'll write $200 next to 100%. Now we're going to mark it up by 30%. So we'll take this bar and add 30% to it. Your drawing doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be somewhat proportional. And be sure to label it 30%. Now we just have to figure out what goes in the boxes. Here, what's 100% of 200? And that's easy. 100% of 200 is the whole thing. So I'll write down 200 inside the bar. Time for this part here. What's 30% of 200? So we need to convert this to a decimal in order to multiply. Remember, 30% is written as 3/10. We could write 30 hundredths, but remember we're going to drop trailing zeros when multiplying. So now we need to do 200 times 3/10. So let's write it down and do the work. 200 times 3/10. 0, 0, and 6. We have one decimal place, and our answer is 60. So 60 goes in this bar. Now all we have to do is add them up. Here, 200 plus 60 will give us 260. So draw a bracket, and the whole thing is now $260. Let's summarize what just happened. The original price was $200, so I'll write it down. The markup was $60, and we added them together to get $260. And that is our final price. Now let's compare that to a markdown. Our example was a $200 dress is marked down by 30%. We're still going to start with our 100% bar, and since the dress originally started at $200, let's write $200 next to 100%. Now since we're marking the price down by 30%, we're not going to add 30% to the bar, we're going to take 30% away. So let's cut the bar right around here and lightly shade it in. Don't shade it in too dark because we're going to write numbers inside. And let's label this 30%. So this part that we just shaded used to count as part of the price. Since we put it on sale, this part doesn't count anymore, and that's why it's called discount. The word discount just means that it doesn't count. How much of the price doesn't count anymore? 30%. Let's keep going. So here, the customer doesn't have to pay 30%. They only have to pay this part here, which is 70%. Now let's figure out what goes in the bars. What's 30% of 200? And we actually already know the answer to that. 30% of 200 is 60. So we'll write it down right here. Now, what's 70% of 200? So let's calculate it here. Here's 200 times 7/10, which is the same as 70%. Let's do the work. We have one decimal place, and our answer is 140. So that goes in here. Let's recap what just happened. The original price was $200. We gave it a markdown of 30%, and that was equivalent to $60. So we're going to subtract $60. And our final price is $140. Let's compare and contrast markups and markdowns so that we can tell the difference between the two. For markups, we always start with a 100% bar. And for markdowns, we also start with a 100% bar. For markups, percentages always go outside of the bar. And for markdowns, percentages also go outside of the bar. For markups, the bar gets longer, but for markdowns, the bar gets shorter. Markups use addition, just like we have here, and markdowns use subtraction, just like this. Next, markups go up on top of the bar. So notice with the 30% markup, it's up at the top of the bar. For markdowns, markdowns go down underneath the bar. Here's the 30% discount, and it went down underneath the bar. Finally, markups have no shading, but markdowns have light shading to show that this part doesn't count towards the price anymore. And that's how you can tell the difference between markups and markdowns. Again, this was a key lesson, so students should hang on to the sheet and use it as reference for future lessons.